this one. So there we go. You should have that now. I'm going to go to slideshow. There we go. Okay. So what I wanted to do in this class is I wanted to kind of put together all of the parts of the storytelling that we've done so far in the class so that you can kind of get a picture of how you might put together an entire story, not just some part of the story, but the whole thing together. And in order to do that, I wanted to, go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. Not that slide, but anyway, I did want to go to the next slide and to talk about how to kind of amalgamate the ideas that we have into a full story. So that's C.S. Lewis there, who says you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. And that's actually true in writing. When we write towards an ending ultimately. Even if we didn't start that way, we end up writing towards a particular ending. And you can change the story to fit that ending. So last week you had a little work to do at home, which I don't know, whoever did it, great. If not, you're gonna have to do it here in class, fun times. So, so here it is. Come up with a list of things you want that are in conflict with other things you want. So that could be something really not so deep, like I really would like to eat some chocolate, but I also would really like to lose some weight, right? So that could be something simple like that, or it could also be something far more complicated and deep. So you determine the depth of how deep you want that conflict to be. But every single person in the whole world is full of these really complicated conflicts. And I asked you to write a paragraph or two about having to choose between these two desires, whatever the two desires were that you decided that you wanted to write about. So did anybody do that work? Excuse me, please, let's hope so. I'm looking like, no, I don't see any hands, nothing. Wow, spectacular. All right, well, if that's the case, you're going to do it right now. Could you please come up with a list of some things that you want that are in conflict with other things that you want, and then write a paragraph or two about having to choose between these two desires. And I'm going to do it also since there's just two of us.
I have something to say about the list.
Oh, you do? Oh, yay, Rafael, go ahead.
I was just outside shutting the door. I wanted to go shooting today some pictures, but it was so hot that I wanted to go outside. So
yeah, that's an example, right? That's a, if you're thinking about like kind of emotional depth levels, right? So that might be like a 1. You want to go shooting the photography. It's got like reasons that you're excited about it, but on the other hand, you don't want to get sunburned, you don't want to get overheated, whatever it is, right? So that's kind of way up here. So can somebody think of, without, it doesn't have to be you, it could be just like an idea from the news or whatever, what would be an example of things that somebody might want that are in conflict with other things that they might want?
Someone would like to increase taxes, but they're scared that all the rich people are going from the country.
Okay, that's a good example. Raduca,
your mic is turned off.
Hayden, you can unmute yourself if you have something to say. I saw you raise your hand. Can you unmute yourself and say what you wanted to say?
It was like we're still like talking thing, weird stuff. But I want to go to Disneyland, but I can't because there's coronavirus and I don't want to catch it.
There you go. That's a good example.
And
very good example.
Safe.
Yeah, well done. Okay, yeah, it's kind of sad. Like I wish you could go to Disneyland also. Yeah. How about you, Penny? Do you have some thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'd like to be with you, but I can't because there's no airplanes.
True story. I would not be leaving Western Australia right now if I was you. I'd be like, let me stay in Western Australia. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah. So these are examples of like relatively low level emotional things. So like, let's say even if you just look in the newspaper, there's stories all the time. Actually, the story that I'm thinking of saying, I'm going to just delete from my memory bank right now because I have young kids here. But there are things where people are really torn between something that they want to do and, let's say, the right thing to do, or something that they want to do and another right thing that they want to do, but it's going to cause, you know, damages to themselves, their family, whatever it is. There's all these very interesting things. And in fact, most stories are kind of written around these interesting conflicts that people have between the things that they want, the desires that they have. I want this, but I also want that. So, like, what am I going to choose, right?
It seems Avery has an idea too.
Yes, Avery, go ahead.
You can unmute yourself, Avery.
What are we doing? Because my mommy accidentally clicked me out.
Oh, okay. So I don't know what that was. What did you? Okay. Avery, do you have something about what Goldie's asking? No. So let's.
Okay, I'll just move on then.
Yeah, please move on.
Is that Sarah down there? I think I see Sarah. Sarah, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so this was the writing assignment for this past week, and I didn't do it because I had to really think about it. It wasn't an easy question to answer because then I always ended up choosing one. I realized I wasn't able to see them so conflicting that they're both desires. Like, one turned into a non-desire after I had to choose. So,
Right.
no, I don't have any examples.
Huh. Okay, so a lot of people, especially, like, I usually teach university classes, and so a lot of people will say things like, well, I had to choose between two equally good schools, two equally good universities, and I couldn't figure out which one I would go to. They were both the same price, they were both similar levels, you know, in terms of academics, but there were all these different aspects, and I didn't know where would be the best place for me or what would happen eventually when I got there. And so that for many, at least for many high school students or university students, that's like one of the classics that's really easy for them to say, oh yeah, I didn't know which one to choose here. They seem like equal choices, right? Because we did talk in earlier classes about this idea that they're equal choices. They can't be like you said, Sarah, where one seems like, well, definitely I'm going to go with that one, and this one, it's not so good, right? Because then it's not a choice. It's like obvious. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely going to go with that one. Whereas like something like an example might be somebody who's been raised very ethically and told, you know, you absolutely cannot steal, and at the same time they're very close to their family, and their family is starving, and they end up stealing a loaf of bread, right, to feed their family. So that would be an example of two equal and opposite choices. They really, really feel ethically bound not to steal, and at the same time, if they don't steal, their family will starve, so they do steal, right? So those are two kind of equal choices, and, you know, great example there from Dickens. So that's, you know, those are the kind of choices that you end up with. Or something like there's a book, Sophie's Choice. In the book, does anybody know that?
Yes.
That thing? Right. So she has to choose between. She has two children. Which child will she save from the Nazis? So, right. Two equal choices. They're both horrendous choices. How can you choose? The second you make a choice, it's over. Like they're both horrible choices. So that's kind of what you're looking for when you're looking for a good story, a very compelling story that's going to engage people, going to hook them in. You're looking for a story that's really got these two choices that seem equal, and you can like work on that. You can tinker around as the writer. You can make them seem more equal than they really are, but ultimately that's what you're looking for. You're looking for equal choices. So I'm going to walk you guys through this particular exercise, because this class today is really, I want you to have all the juice, I guess, to be able to write a story. And like the things that I'm telling you right now, these aren't just, oh yeah, you know, one of these things is okay and the other thing isn't okay, or I don't really need this thing, or I don't really need that thing. No, actually, all of these things are essential to story. And so if you want to write a story that's a compelling, good story, they all have these elements in it. So I'm going to move on to those things, and we're going to step through it one by one. And we've done all of these things in the class, so they should be familiar to you. So here, however, in this exercise, I'm going to control the point of view. I don't want you choosing a character. I'm going to say the character is you, right? You're writing from your own point of view in first person, which means I walked along the street, I did this thing. And you can write in the present or the past tense, retrospective. And I actually want you to do these things, these steps as we go along. So if you don't have a pen and paper, go and get a pen and paper or a computer right now. As you go. Also, I love Calvin and Hobbes. Makes me laugh. All right, so the first part, so now you know, okay, your main character, your point of view character is I. Basically, in my case, Goldie. Goldie is going to be telling the story. Here's the second step. Right? Under what kind of circumstances do these conflicting desires come up? So you guys, if you don't have a conflicting desire yet, you're going to have to come up with something, right? Where do they come up? When do they come up? How and why? And these are things like plot setting and some of the pressures or perturbations of the work. So I want you to do that right now, okay? I want you to come up with like a little list. I need some paper myself. There we go. So you need you know who your main character is. It's you, you know, whatever your name is. And then you also know at least some conflicting desires. We did talk about some of them. They're not that hard, by the way. You're imagining something for yourself, okay? It doesn't have to be your actual conflicting desires. It could be something that you ripped off from the newspaper or from the crime sheets or from a book. It could be anything. Okay, so I'm going to give an example that I actually just ripped off from a book that I just read. So this is totally okay for this exercise, okay? I'm not writing that book. I'm not going to write this story, but I wrote down the conflicting desire, my conflicting desire in this particular exercise. I want to be close with my family. And in the case of this book that I just read, but the family is crazy.
That's
Right? I mean, this is the story of many books that I really enjoy, right? So you want to be close with the family. Here's this conflicting desire, but the family's crazy and has potential to harm you.
That's
right?
not a great conflict to have.
You want the closeness, but ouch, you know, you get with that, the things that come with it. So then where does that conflicting desire come up? So in my case, I'm going to put it into this story. In my case, it happens at home and in the house, right? And then when does it come up? Thanksgiving, right? I don't even do Thanksgiving, so it's total fiction. Right? It happens at Thanksgiving dinner. And how does it come up? Over politics. And why does it come up? Because everyone's a real loudmouth, right? So I'm just like blowing smoke right now. I'm just making this up. Nevertheless, does a family dinner on Thanksgiving where people start talking about politics and everyone's a little crazy and mean-spirited and loud, does that have the potential to be an interesting story? Yes. Yes, it does, right? Because there's built-in conflict. So I'd like to hear, if you're willing, your lists of these things.
Oh, I mean,
You don't have
I have one exactly like what you said, but I'm gonna, how many do you want in a list?
So it would be something like, under what kind of circumstances does this conflicting desire? You might want to say what your conflicting desire is, when they come up, what the circumstances are, where they come up, when and how and why, right? So it's like a series of questions that kind of frame the story.
I understood that part. I thought you want more of this, like you want 3-4 packages like this, not that.
No, just one is fine.
Oh, one is enough. Okay.
Yeah, one is enough. Penny, you're giving me a frowny face. I'm worried.
Oh, it's okay. Sorry, I've had a migraine for a week and a half.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
so
love.
my brain will work.
Migraines are the worst. Well, anybody?
Okay, I'll try.
Yay, Raduca. I love it. You just dive right in, both feet.
Well,
Excellent.
see that? Yeah, it's about, and I'm going to piggyback to what you said because I had exactly the same idea when you started talking about being close to my mom, who actually is aging and has dementia, and where is at her house, and when I go there and I want her to enjoy some Romanian music and then she can't really do it. And then we have this broken relationship that actually it's not just with her, but with myself. I have this conflict where I'm trying not to, like I'm trying to be close, but also distant at the same time to protect myself from feeling sorry and hurt and all that. So that's sort of the little thing.
Okay, so that's perfect, actually. That's an ideal circumstance, right? Because even when you win, you lose, right? Even when you win, you get there, you play the music or whatever, but there's still all this pain associated, right? Or maybe she doesn't understand the music or whatever. That's a perfect example of what creates a really good story, because you have the push and pull, the wish to really connect, and also the pain when you do, right? So that's what stories are. Like when you're able to demonstrate that in a story, and it doesn't even have to be a big story. It could just be like a page. It still has all the potential to kind of touch other people, because that's other people's experiences too, whether they're willing to say so on this screen, right? Whether they're willing to say so or not, many people have that experience. That's a common experience. And so if you can write about that and write about it well, you've touched people. That's a good story.
Conflict doesn't have to be only between two opposing things. It could be that you're being pulled in different directions. And it's still
that's where I'm going with this, that conflict isn't just this, right? It's not just this. It's, I want this thing and I also want that thing, or I want this thing and it's not good for me, right? So that conflict is what I think of as the truly interesting conflict, the conflict with yourself, right? The external conflict is interesting. It's interesting. It's what propels probably 90% of like movies that are made in Hollywood. But the internal conflict is the thing that everybody can relate to. I may not be able to relate to, I don't even know what, a car chase down the middle of Manhattan or something, but I can definitely relate to what you said, Raduca, right? Because that's a shared wish. Everybody wants to have connection with family, and also often has ouchy connection with family, right? Yeah. Anybody else want to talk about that? This is an exercise. It's interactive. Come on.
It's pretty good that they don't have any conflict.
I have something. I
Well, they
don't
have to
know how
make
to form it, but I have some. I'm going to take again my photography shooting problem that it's hot outside, but it's so. But I need a picture for the next day to post it, so I can keep my daily rhythm. But so I tried. So I want to go outside. I want to shoot the picture, but I don't really want to go outside because it's so hot and so it's really exhausting. Because even walking 13 minutes, you'll come back really wet and really sweaty and really tired, and that's a bit of a con or a conflict, because I would like to get those pictures, but otherwise I don't want to get that sweaty and that hot and that tired when I come back.
Right. So where is this happening, Rafael? Are you in Paris?
No, at my home.
Okay, so where is your home? Because, right, one of the questions is where?
I'm living near Dijon.
Ah, Dijon, that's right, I forgot, sorry. Okay, so, and when does it happen? It happens in the hot summer months, you've just said.
It happened today.
Yes. And how does it come about that you are wanting to take photographs?
I photograph normally every day or every 2 days. So I have a challenge that I post every day a pic on Instagram to get more exposure, because I would like to do something in the photography business. So how I could get more exposure. I take it like if I do a picture every day, it's like a lottery ticket. If I post more, but good content, but if I only post one a week, so I have less exposures for the people to see.
Okay, so actually there is a risk for you, right? So in this story, the risk is if you kind of checked out and you don't step outside your house and take those photographs, it's a possible loss of income or exposure, right? So those are kind of important. Cool. Okay, so now I feel like there's more risk for your character. Excellent. Sarah, do you have something?
So the thing that comes to mind, it's not my story or my.
Right. No, it's none of these are anybody's stories.
Oh, okay. Well, so but this is almost like literally from the book that I'm reading right now. I don't know. So it's this lady who, she was young and she really wanted to be a musician, pianist. But then then the war came and she was put into concentration camps and all of that. And then she comes out and she still like has a passion to be a musician, and she has to go and apply, or she has to kind of reintegrate herself back into the world that she used to be in and try to express that part of herself again. But because so many years have passed in that meantime, she wasn't building her technique and her skill and her fingers and her tactile memory. And so going as a more mature student to a conservatory to say, hey, can I apply and be a part of this? She faced, it was like really stressful for her. And so the conflict in that would be to want to be a to study music and to be that pianist you wanted, well, actually a harpsichordist, but and then to have to overcome, to engage with these obstacles. I don't know if that would be a conflict as we're talking about it. Obstacles are conflict, or
I think it is, in fact. It's an excellent example of a shame-based conflict. So, right, so she would want, let's say she wants to go to the conservatory, she wants to become a musician, and at the same time to show up with stiff fingers and less skills, that's very embarrassing, right?
Mhm.
So it's shame-based, and that actually kind of undermines her ability to practice,
Mhm.
right? So that's a very good example. Okay, so you're going to take on that example. So, and it's post-Holocaust. Where exactly are you setting this story?
She's in Czech Republic.
In the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Okay, and she's applying to what conservatory? Just make up a name if you don't know.
Okay, like the Royal Conservatory of, I don't know if Prague has a royal, well, they probably do. So the Prague Royal Conservatory.
Fabulous.
Okay.
Awesome. And we all already talked about the whys and the hows. Okay, so Penny, do you want to go? I'm literally going to walk you guys through this because I want you to be able to do this in the future.
I've gone back to my grey thing and the end of the lease, and so there's our holiday shack that's up at a place called Grey, where it's going to be demolished if when the road goes through. And so we've been fighting about cultural heritage and significance with the government, and there are parties up at the shack that should be involved, and then there's parties in the shack that shouldn't be involved because I don't know what they're talking about. And the politicians, and that's about as far as I've got it right now.
So the conflicting desires of your character, meaning you in this, would be you want the shack to exist.
Yes,
right?
yes. Want to keep our holiday. Yeah.
Yes, you want the shack to exist. But then what's in conflict with that? Right? Because there's only a story if there's conflict. So what would be a conflicting desire to that? To be a law-abiding citizen?
Yeah, well, yes.
Not get arrested?
Yeah, exactly. To actually have a piece of paper, a lease, to say that we're actually allowed to be there and not squatting. Up.
To not be considered a squatter?
Squatters.
Okay. Yeah, those are excellent examples of conflicting desires. Okay. And that's at Grey, and it's the current time, and how, well, the government wants to come in and make a road and take away the lease or take away the land holding. And why, right? Why do you have these conflicting desires? Because it's been a place that you've had for a long time, and you also don't want to get into major trouble for it, right? So you're connected to the, but you're also afraid of consequences. Okay, so those are excellent examples. They answer all these questions. All right, so I'm going to move to the next phase. Next phase is this. So I'm going to move this over so I can see what I'm doing. So what kind of people do you get involved with when these conflicting desires come into play? Write down 3 of them, give them names, ages, and attitudes. They don't have to be 3 if there's literally not 3 in the story, but it's more helpful, especially in a short story. And this is like, at the moment, we're writing a short story. It's usual to have like at least another 2 people besides yourself. So that doesn't mean that it always has to happen that way, but preferable. If you can come up with yourself and 2 others or even 3 others, that'll be great. Give them names, ages, and attitudes. I just want a list here. People who are involved in your story, so to speak. Huh. So that shouldn't take too long, hopefully. Raise your hand if you have finished that little list. Raduca, Sarah, Rafal. Penny, you still going?
I'm nearly done.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna just go first because I actually realized something when I wrote this down, interestingly. So remember that I went with I want to be close with family, but the family's has the potential to harm, right? And it's in the house during Thanksgiving, people are talking about politics and everyone's super loud. So then the characters that I'm bringing into this process are somebody called Uncle Alex, who's very combative and hilarious, Rabbi Twersky, who's a peacekeeper, my ex-husband who has no filter, and my, let's say, okay, so this is again imaginary people for the most part, my deaf son, right? And so my deaf son is somebody who's afraid anytime there's loud noises, and this is an environment in which there are loud noises. So let's say that these are the circumstances in which I set this story. So I've deliberately set it up so that there are people pushing and pulling on the environment, the table, right? People who are likely to say stuff that I wish that they wouldn't say, people who are likely to be alarmed by it, people who are likely to try and keep things tamped down, and other people who are going to stir it up again, right? So I created an environment that will not be stable. You're not looking to create a stable environment in a story. You're looking to destabilize things. So anybody want to go?
I have only one character because the story is based on myself.
Yes. But
so,
if you were to have another character, would the other character be somebody who's looking at your stories? Or not your stories, I'm sorry, your photographs?
I mostly do it alone, so it's pretty hard to get another person in it.
Do you have a fan on Instagram, let's say?
Yeah, I have many followers on Instagram. I have roughly 200.
Okay, so pick somebody, just make them up. This is a story, right? So it's partially true, you're in it, but it's also partially not true. So you can write however you want to write. Choose a fan, somebody who's waiting to see your photographs.
Okay.
Because that will put more pressure on the story. There's another person.
And also I would be tempted to anthropomorphize, or is that exactly how to pronounce it? Like his camera or the dog that accompanies him during the trips, whether there's so many other things that we can get them involved in this conflict.
I mean, it totally depends on the writer, right? You could also have the people in the photographs. Let's say he's taking photographs of people. You could have the people in the photographs, not the real life people, but the people in the photographs talk to him, right? It's up to the writer. However, the interaction is key in stories, right? That interaction, that kind of movement back and forth between you and somebody else, whether that somebody else is real or not, is key. So you can have stories about very lonely people who don't have a connection to anybody, let's say. There's a great book that I just read called Plow the Earth Over My Bones, I think. Great book. The writer just won the Nobel Prize, unless I'm crazy. And in that book, it's an incredibly lonely person. Nevertheless, that person keeps on bumping into the police, different people in the woods, deer, cats, the dogs, the ghosts of the dogs, the ghosts of her parents who died in the house. So there's this whole kind of world, even though probably months and months and months go by before this person sees anybody else, anybody real. Right? But those interactions really shape the story. They're very important because they let us know how other people view that character. Okay. Somebody else? Sarah, did you want to go?
Okay, So I have two characters, and one of them is the mother, and her name is Lita, and she's 62 years old, and she has the attitude of enthusiasm and optimism.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
and,
great.
and there's another character, Professor Vera, and she is 67 years old, and she has the attitude, she's strict, hostile, perfectionistic, and she can be demeaning.
Oh, okay, excellent. Wow, we already see the potential here. This is good. All right. How about you, Penny? Do you want to go?
Yeah, okay. I've got Des, who's ex-policeman. He's an upstanding citizen, upstanding type of citizen. Sarah, the psycho, narcissist, in her 50s. Shep, the professor, with a balanced point of view, and the twins that are bikies.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so you've got some really interesting characters, lots of potential for instability in the story. Very good. And Raduca, did you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So I have the mom who's angry, frustrated, the caregiver, young, helpful patient, a sister who's frustrated, angry, and invents problems, a granddaughter who's avoidant and introvert, and then an inner critic and inner guilt. So sort of,
Oh, yes. These are great. Okay, so these are all fantastic opportunities for instability, right? You've got like a kind of like as if you're playing a game of cards. You want to have like the balance there in the hand, right? You want to have the strong things and the things that kind of match that, the things that are opposite that, and you have that, right? So all of you have done a really good job of coming up with these necessary characters to destabilize, right? So I'm going to move to the next section. I know that this might seem like, what are you doing, Goldie? But these are actually, it's just a revision of all the different things that we've done until now, and kind of bringing them together and putting them down on paper, because that's the thing, like, you can think about these things all day long, but until they're actually down on the paper, you got nothing. So so here are some of the things that I want you to think about. What kinds of things could you get if you go with option A, right? So remember, we talked about these two choices, these conflicting desires. What kind of things could you get if you go with option A? What kind of things could you lose? So brainstorm these possibilities. And by brainstorm, I mean, don't just go with the obvious ones. Some of the things could be way, way less obvious. So in my case, let's say, right, the story that I was like plotting out was, let's say I want to be really close with the family, but the family has the potential to hurt me, right? So what kinds of things could you get if you go with option A? Option A, well, I could get family closeness. I could get great conversations with people I care about. I could get love. I could get attention. I could get, I don't even know what, brainstorm. Move back to Australia. I don't even know, like, right? So a whole series of things that would be positive if I go with option A, reconnect with family. And then what are the things that I could lose if I connect with family? Self-worth, self-esteem. Maybe I could lose the family. Lose my job. All kinds of different things, right? So you can actually put into the story what you want your character to lose through interactions, right? So like in the case of the story that we talked about in one of the classes, which I think all of you were here for, so I feel comfortable bringing it up again, the story, What of This Goldfish Would You Wish? In that story, if the goldfish didn't talk, then by using up the wish, let's say there was a wish without the talking, by using up the wish, the guy, the Russian man, loses nothing. He just uses the wish. And he doesn't lose his friend, right? So what the writer did, Edgar Carrot, is he put in the fact that this old Russian man feels like he has a friend in the fish. So that by using up his wish, the goldfish leaves and he has no friends. He loses his friend, so he becomes lonely, right? So that's actually a very important pivot in the story, and he invented that. He made that up. He stuck it in the story to make it interesting, to put more pressure on the story. So you too can do that. Like in my story, let's say if I chose to make it that this character, I don't know, Uncle Alex, let's say, speaks to Rabbi Twersky, who's the head of the school where I teach, and tells him, I don't know, that I'm mentally unstable and that I was in a mental institution for 10 years. And as a result, he doesn't believe, this Uncle Alex doesn't believe that I should be teaching in the school. Bam, right? So I invented that. That's not true. But if I put that in the story, all of a sudden that puts so much pressure on this interaction. I have these people sitting at the same table, and Uncle Alex could rat me out to the head of the school where I teach. Uh-oh, now I have a problem, right? And because he talks a lot, okay, so I want to connect with family, but look what I did when I did that. I connected with family, and now maybe I'm out of a job, right? So I just invented that. I brainstormed that. It's not a true thing. I just threw it into the story. You guys can do that too, and I want you to. So take a few minutes right now to think about what could you do like that. What do you get? What do you lose? Also, Rafal, I'm totally going to follow you on Instagram so I can see your photos.
I'm putting my username in the chat.
Yes, please.
There we go.
If I can get it. I guess maybe at the end. I'll try. Okay, so does everybody have these some, at least some things, right? So these exercises, you can keep on doing this at home. In any time when you're coming up with a story, this is the kind of stuff that I, as a writer, will sit and like kind of brainstorm to myself. But what if this? What if that? What if this? What if that? How about this idea? How about that idea, right? So it's not like I put everything down on the paper right from the start. I actually kind of brainstorm a bunch of ideas in my head first, and this is how I do it. So Sarah, you look like you're ready to go.
Okay, so option A, my character, she goes to the office of a head professor in this department of piano studies to explain her situation and what she would like to do. But this professor's really strict, and so she goes there, and what she has to lose by going here, showing up to this person, is that, so at this moment her self-esteem isn't very high. So and it's not very strong. It's not very strong. And so when she goes there, she could lose some more of her self-esteem with whatever criticism comes along from that exchange. I'm assuming that it will go badly. And she could gain new negative self-perceptions. So that's also a bad thing. And she could reinforce her belief that something's wrong with her. Excellent. And that she's deformed in some way. And so those are the negatives. Those are the things that she has to lose. And then the positives are, so she does that and has that exchange with the professor that goes poorly, but then she comes home to her mom, and her mom gives her a lot of support and cares for her, and also maintains a sustained belief that things will work out well and she will be able to express this part of herself despite, so she can experience this type of sustained belief through her mother, and feeling cared for by. And so those are the positives, and then yeah, that's it.
Yeah, really well done. Perfect. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly the kind of thing that you're looking for in a story, like this balance between, well, I get this, but I could lose that. Right? That's exactly what you're looking for. Did somebody else have something they wanted to say? Anybody else ready? You all seem wildly distracted. I'm hoping that you're all wildly distracted with this question.
I mean, I'm ready.
Okay, go Rodrika then. Thanks.
So what I gain if I basically my issue is I want to be close. So what do I gain through closeness is it's healing of the relationship. So there's emotional repair. The grandmother, I can introduce my children to the grandmother and have more of them knowing rather than just knowing her through me. Peace of mind, I would gain peace of mind. What I want is, I mean, the negative, if that will achieve, there is a danger of having my time more and more occupied by this, to a sense where, you know, the enmeshment situation will take over again, where we are becoming one again. And I guess again, losing the emotional freedom, which was gained through having more space between us. And there's more. I don't know why I go very.
No, because it's personal, right? So your story feels personal, and so it's hard to write about. It's really hard, and I'm just going to acknowledge this frankly. It's really hard to write about things that are real and that have real emotional weight. And that's true whether it's your own circumstance or not. So if I'm writing, like, let's say the book that I wrote most recently, I wrote about a woman who lost a set of twins and she had a difficult situation trying to connect with her husband. So that's not my life circumstances. And yet when I wrote it, I felt it so intensely that it was actually really hard to write into that, right? Because you're writing about something that's real and weighty and difficult for somebody. And so that's true if you're writing something that isn't your own world. How much more so if you're writing your own world, right? That's very challenging. Nevertheless, that is the challenge of writing.
So isn't in every choice an inherent loss of the path not taken?
Could you say that again?
So isn't in any choice an inherent loss of the path not taken? So yes. You can always go back, not back and forth, but like all these paths that you have not taken.
Yeah, that's exactly what a good piece of writing does, right? A good piece of writing says, well, look, you got this, cool, but you lost that. There's never, you got this, ta-da! Because that ta-da isn't real. That ta-da, if you know, like if I read a little kid's book, there might be a ta-da moment, like, oh, yeah, you know, everything turned out well in the end. But in real life, it doesn't. You know, you succeed, you graduate university, let's say, you got all A's, that's fabulous. But as a result of getting all A's, you actually didn't connect with all the students, and so you graduated without any friends, right? So each thing comes with choices that weren't made, and a real life is able to look at both of those things. That's when it feels real. When we're reading a book and the writer can show us, hey, look, this character got this good thing, but they also are able to point out, yeah, there's these other choices that weren't taken. That feels very good to a reader. It feels good to us because that's our lives. That's us.
Right.
That's reality.
And I find it very cool if actually the character is not aware of that also. Like there's something about the struggles to become aware of what you lose or what you gain. And
well, what you're talking about, Raduca, is actually one of what I think of as the real joys of reading a good book. When the character themselves doesn't necessarily know what they've lost or doesn't necessarily experience it, but we as the reader do. We're the ones who are left holding the emotional bag, is the way I describe that.
All right.
When you're left holding the emotional bag, you're the one who feels the depth of that loss. And I love that. I don't know. I just like, you know, I want to read stories that are like that. That makes me happy. And I'm like, yes, because it's true that there are many times when I don't know in my own life the things that I gave up in order to get where I'm going. I hope I know a lot of them, but I don't know all of them. And it's interesting in stories. Actually, the exercise for tonight, or this week, is based on this idea. What don't we know? I think we are past time, and this class is actually only halfway done. So we'll continue this if that's okay. The next time we meet. But I'm going to jump ahead to the, here we go. So this is the exercise. Let me move this thing so that you guys can see it. Yeah, no, hang on. There we go. So this is your exercise that I'd like you to work on for this coming week. And I do encourage you guys to actually put pen to paper or fingers to keys, because you learn by doing. Like I can talk and talk and talk and talk, but you won't actually be able to integrate this into your work until you actually try it. So 200 word prompts here. So like if you did one of these every day, you know, you'd get somewhere. So 1, describe your earliest memory. That's pretty easy. 2, describe something that happened yesterday. Also pretty easy. 3, describe something that happened a week ago yesterday. I think that's pretty easy. Describe something that happened 5 years ago yesterday. Well, I don't know. And then 5, describe something that you have completely forgotten. So the reason that the reason that I want you to work on that idea of describing something, eventually getting to it, right? You can describe things that you know, and then getting to the place of I don't know. The interesting kind of things that happen in writing is when you start trying to describe the things that you don't know. You're not imagining them. You're writing about the things you don't know. And like if I were to write about, let's say I was to write about my father. So there's lots I don't know about my father, and that makes it interesting. It's very interesting when you don't know something. And it's interesting when you don't know the motivations for things. I think F. Scott Fitzgerald talked about the idea that you know the motivations for your characters, you write them into the story, but you withdraw one very important one. And that never makes it into the story. And that leaves this kind of lingering hole. I don't understand something. It's interesting. Anyway. All right. So that's the work for this coming week.